Hey guys, Youngblood Fantasy 91 here with part 2 of my response to Guptill's supposed refutations to my arguments. If you have not seen part 1 of the commentary, go back and review that before you plunge into this part of the commentary. If you have, then let's watch Guptill crash and burn some more.
True, the Warner Brothers and Screen Gems alterations were pretty stupid, but at least they had the courtesy to place the business name along with the insignia.
Chermayeff Geismar, this is Guptill 89. Guptill 89, Chermayeff Geismar. This company designs logos that are so well known that one could see the logo independent of the business name and people would be confident what product or company the logo represents. Because you see, Guptill, people are able to associate pictures with products, and sometimes the business name is not always needed unless you want to split hairs, which you do. Here are some examples of certain logos Chermayeff Geismar designed.
Also, little do you know, you were actually adding to my argument. I complained about Chrysler because while some can be familiar with the manufacturer, they can still get bewildered, especially if they went to an old-fashioned car show, or if they're on the road and spot a vehicle with any one of these symbols on it, because they can forget what trademarks the corporation had.
This is literally the only part of the video where I tilted my head back and was like, "Dear God, Guptill made a solid point!" But see, here's the problem. You're assuming that any average Joe is going to drive around and see all of these Chrysler symbols. We damn well know it's not the case, given that you don't see Joe Public driving around a 1935 Chrysler Airstream or a 1976 Chrysler Galant. You may see them, but they are not usually seen. Again, you are magnifying possibilities that usually do not occur in everyday life. Therefore, the confusion factor is not going to be as overwhelming as you claim.
Yes, I am, because as long as it says Pepsi on the can, bottle, or other object, nothing is wrong.
I cannot emphasize enough how desperately your common sense needs bolstering. Just like I said when I talked about Chermayeff Geismar, the logo could be as distinctive as the business name and therefore can exist independent of the business name itself. What, you need everything spelled out for you? I suppose we could construct a street called Guptill Road and every business on that road must be completely specifically named. In the real world, things don't work the way you think they should.
The long line of modifications is a perfect example of consistency, something a few other organizations like Nike and Gatorade lack.
My God, the Nike logo is the epitome of consistency. It has not changed once. Ever. Yes, the business name was removed at some point, but the logo never changed. Based on that flawed logic, there's a lack of consistency for the logo histories of Shell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, NBC, Apple, Texaco, Chevrolet, General Electric, McDonald's, Buick, Prudential, Volkswagen, Mercedes. Do I really need to continue here?
Refer to what I said earlier about the Mountain Dew issue since I don't want to recapitulate.
And your argument comes crashing to the ground. So everything you said the past 5 minutes were irrelevant. Wow, Guptill, admitting that I was right really does a number on your reasoning, huh?
To point out actual problems with the economy that most folks take for granted?
So you're substituting natural logo design changes with problems with the economy? I don't see how they're interchangeable. Let's think about it for a moment. Why is our economy declining? Oh, well, it can't be the government spending too much, or the housing market collapsing, or subprime mortgages being handed out like candy to too many people, or the world markets also trying to bail out bankrupt countries. Nah, it all comes down to what the Nike logo looked like in 2008 as opposed to 1995. Brilliant, Guptill. Simply brilliant.
If an establishment only gets redecorated, it shouldn't be considered progress. The real definition of progress would be expanding the size of the structure or putting up an entirely different premise altogether.
Well, Guptill, I got news for you. When it comes to redecoration, there is always the aspect of maintenance to take into consideration. A Dunkin' Donuts that has been around for many years without any changes made to it will stick out like a sore thumb down the road when people and stores around it will change too. So, to account for this, people will perform redecoration to not only make the store look good, but also to account for any maintenance problems it may have. So, yes, it is progress if the building has been updated to keep up to code and appearance.
Take this for instance. The old McDonald's properties in New England had an appearance that looked like a 3D interpretation of the original Pizza Hut seal. Now, the buildings are rectangular cubes with bricks and stone. Despite the fact that it slightly looks like a car dealership, it's an appropriate redesign.
But that's redecoration, Guptill. You said redecoration to an extent is useless. And I'm sure that maintenance was employed when redecorating that McDonald's anyways, so I don't think it isn't too much of an appropriate redesign as much as it was necessary for it to an extent.
Also, they added more parking spaces. On the other hand, going from this to this doesn't work.
And yet you don't seem to outline why this new design doesn't work. Sad, because it proves my point. You just don't like the look of the design, therefore you think it is useless. I swear, the more you talk, the more I'm inclined to believe that you're just doing this based on your own bias.
And besides, as long as the sign has the words Dunkin' Donuts on it, individuals are going to order the treats anyway.
So you shouldn't care about redecorations if the store premise remains the same and if they are still vending the same donutty comestibles and the same coffee. All you are caring about is the appearance of the store. Honestly, you are one superficial son of a bitch.
Oh, please. If I didn't possess the knowledge exemplified in the presentation, the bad U.S. economy could get worse.
Okay, Milton Friedman, tell me how the economy is hanging in the balance when you got Prudential changing its logo or Apple changing its logo. Tell me, how is our GDP going to look, Mr. Paul Krugman, when Lay's suddenly underlines its logos or changes the font to Comic Sans? I swear, this connection you're making between logos and the economy is almost too inextricable. Just restrict this to consumerism, not concepts involving debt that isn't related to that.
A lot of officials are greedy and are spending thousands of dollars to do things that inflame the financial crisis, such as this.
And of course, John Maynard Keynes over here is going to describe the perfect example of how our economy works and then mislabel it as unnecessary. Let's see his brilliance in action.
In Somersworth, New Hampshire, there used to be a medium group of houses in one particular area. Citizens lived in that area.
Nah, really? The citizens lived in houses? I thought that in residential areas, people lived in the CVS pharmacy. Oh, how idiotic of me.
There was also a furniture store as well. But one day, all those buildings were torn down just to construct a CVS pharmacy. If you thought demolishing the houses was bad enough, across from the pharmacy is another pharmacy owned by Rite Aid. Brilliant. Simply brilliant.
And that is the core of capitalism right there, Guptill. Capitalism incorporates the idea of competitive markets in which two or more parties act independently to secure the business of a third party by offering the most favorable items or terms. What are the two parties? CVS and Rite Aid. The third party? People. And that, Guptill, is how our economy works. And since you do not understand the mechanics of our whole economy, I think all of your efforts to try to save it from logo changes and store maintenance is in vain.
What they should have done was nothing. But if they kept the plans to put up a CVS pharmacy, all they would need to do is set it inside the place where Rite Aid was if that particular store went out of business, and just keep the homes and furniture store. That would be an example of a healthy economy.
No, that's an example of arresting the financial opportunities the CVS could gain by moving in on prime territory and rendering its business for others while making money for themselves and generating convenience for the consumers. There could be a number of reasons why the CVS moved in. The town needed more money, the neighborhood was dilapidated, the Rite Aid was still in business, the furniture store called it quits. You're not taking into account other contributing factors to this that would force the CVS in the position that it was in. The economy isn't being heartless to people. The economy is just trying to sustain the expenses of our country. So yes, Adam Smith would be angry at you for not understanding the idea of competitive markets. Idiot.
Bad news. You misunderstood. Again, refer to what I said about that stuff earlier because I don't want to reiterate it.
Well, that's a pure cop-out there, Guptill. I believe my argument is sound because you provided the template for why the store needs to change. To catch up with the times, in case the store needs maintenance, and to catch a person's eye, to make redesigns that ultimately reflect the way the company wants to present itself. I fail to see where I misunderstood there. Perhaps you are misunderstanding me.
Well, guess what? Gatorade, Nike, and Chrysler have been part of the American culture for quite a lot of years, and their symbols didn't have to go through such baffling alterations throughout the course of time.
Baffling alterations? Again, with your innate ability to be hyperbolic in any situation. Let me reword what I said there, as I may have been ambiguous. The logos here, again designed by our old friends Chermayeff and Geismar, are logos that have a simplistic and iconic format. Therefore, lots of them retain the same design throughout their existence. But not all logos are that iconic. Some of them change, like Chrysler and Gatorade. But again, you're not going to see every single variation of the Chrysler logo, and the Gatorade label can be identified if you look at the damn bottles. And do I really need to mention how Nike is recognized by almost all the whole world again? All you are doing is overinflating certain parts of your opinions to make it appear you have points when they are simply outcroppings of your insufferable self-serving bias. That, a good argument, does not make. Also this. Censorship protects ignorance, not innocence.
The problem is, most workers aren't that smart. Also, it's actually bad marketing to confuse customers.
Precisely. If you were dealing with false advertising. And none of these logo changes are indicative of false advertising. People are not going to slip into a fit of confusion if they see logos changing, because if they can see the product label, the problem is not going to affect them. You think everyone is so oversensitive to change, much how you are. Newsflash, that's wrong.
Well, that's it. 12 arguments, all of which I disagree with. That is a lot.
No, you totally conceded to one of my arguments, so it's 11, but that's assuming that your arguments were strong. All of your arguments were either a collection of unwarranted complaints concerning logos or misinterpretations about our economy. That was all they were.
So, young blood, as well as everybody else, I hope you've comprehended this long reply and will take into account strategies to help build an actual, robust economy.
Sure thing, Guptill. I'll write to every major corporation and tell them to never change their logos again. I'm sure consumers will not get bored with corporations as they are not finding ways to advertise their product as a result of their firing all of their advertising departments, thus severing their relationship with the general public, thus distancing themselves from consumerism, thus destroying them from the inside out. Sure thing, Vilfredo Pareto.
Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
And that's the way it is. Guptill, if you were ever appointed to an economic position, assuming if fate wanted to toy with your life, I'd like to see how you would fare if you employed your principles in action. For that matter, I'd like to see you work at Chermayeff and Geismar or even McCann Erickson and see how far you would go there. Because honestly, they are more focused on creativity and figuring out ways to reel people into their other people's businesses, rather than thinking about how long a logo should last for each business. Ultimately, Guptill, you're self-centered. You misinterpret information, you don't understand our economy, and you are in no position to debate if you cannot think of solid counter-arguments. And thus endeth my solemn journey into the world of the never-changing doldrums that is Guptill's mind. This is Young Blood Fantasy 91, and ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all on the brighter later.